be it functional or be it non-functional. So managing NFRs, everyone who designed the solution should understand the importance of NFRs. So overlooking the NFRs is the first indication which I believe that can bring the systems into a failure state. So these NFR actually helps in defining and designing the solutions, and for any infrastructure architect, it helps in transitioning or translating the physical and the network topology of the system. So in order to have the success of the system, it is very, very vital to ensure that you close all relevant non-functional requirements with business stakeholders on time, so that you can actually start building up your solution with the great visibility and considering success criteria. There are key points. What I would say is that has to be taken into consideration while managing NFRs during requirement phase. Make sure that you come up with a list of questionnaire for gathering all the NFRs. Also ensure that every non-functional requirements have more than one questions, so that you can have a complete understanding of each NFR from the business. Capture the response. I would say that when you actually talking to a business, most of the time the business stakeholders are not so technical, so it's always good that when you actually talk around the non-functional requirement, you give the clear visibilities around the impact of answering questions or around that particular non-functional requirement, so that you can get a better response from the stakeholders. Make sure that you actually capture all the responses on a sheet or on a document, so that that same can be referred while designing the solution. Always ensure that while you're talking to a business, you always make sure that there should be some priority or weightage that has been given to the NFRs. So the prioritization can be done either in high, low, medium way, or it can be like, let's say you can provide a weightage like good to have, must to have, something like that. Let's say just to make it simple, let's take an example here. Let's say we have an NFR around the availability, and then if you have to come up with the questionnaires for the availabilities, then it should be regarding system uptime, and which can be measurable in terms of your mean time before failure, MTBF, and MTTR, mean time to repair. In terms of the impact that you need to mention in your document is that if, let's say, the higher the availability, better is the user experience, and I think the long-term success of the product. So this will give the clear visibility to the stakeholders in terms of understanding that NFR. In terms of the response that you have to capture, that you clearly need to make it measurable in terms of saying that, okay, the client is looking for MTBF of 90 days, MTTR of, let's say, 4 hours, so that's something which can be measurable or can be measured while you're actually doing the operational acceptance test, or while you're actually doing a sign up for an SLA while you're actually going into the production mode. In terms of the priority, you know that this is more around the uptime. This should be very, very high prioritized. So the priority should be very, very high. So you can basically come up with an Excel sheet, making sure that every categorization, every NFR categorization has been done properly in that fashion. So over the period of time, I've noticed that there are very, very few common pitfalls that everyone can avoid while getting the non-functional requirements. For example, requirements are too general. Let's say an analyst reaching out to stakeholder and querying the questions like, do you need multilingual support? Do you need security in place? What availability are you looking for? So I think in such cases, stakeholders generally say yes, no, or in terms of the availability, they say, okay, I need 100% to supporting 24/7. So I think they are valid non-functional requirement queries, but I think they are not actually getting into the deep dive of what you really want to achieve from the business. So these requirements are very, very generic in nature. So make sure that when you reach out to stakeholder, be as specific as possible, and also while talking to them, it is always good to have that you ensure stakeholder understanding the cost impact of the ask they are looking for, so that they can correlate to it. For example, an availability of 100% is something which can cost a huge in deploying an infrastructure, as compared to an availability of 99.9% or 99.99%. Requirements are not measurable. I think this is one of the other common things which we generally not captured. So in such cases, we always need to ensure that requirements are unambiguous and should be as measurable as possible. For example, when it comes to the availability uptime requirement, it should be, let's say, 99.9%, 99.99%. Or when it comes to the performance requirement, means what is the transaction per second they are looking for each individual pages, what is the content traffic that the system should handle. So all these things should be measurable, so that it actually don't bring any ambiguity while you actually implement the solutions. Lack of time is one of the factors that I've seen in over the most of the business stakeholders. That is personally my experience, seeing that. So if you feel that there is something which has not been captured, what you need to ensure that you constantly remind stakeholder around the importance of these requirements, and make sure that you get the responses captured at the earliest stage as possible. Lack of ownership. This is one of the other pitfalls. So it is also noticed that a lot of times system or the business analyst lack the ownership of gathering these requirements, be it because of the low knowledge around the non-functional requirement, or because of some other reasons. But we need to ensure that they actively create, tailor, and understand the questionnaires before reaching out to business stakeholder, so that they actually capture the responses in proper way and proper fashion. Talking to a wrong people. So it is must that you get the responses from right set of stakeholders. So one of the important point to identify stakeholder responsible for answering such questions. So you need to make sure that every NFR is a proper stakeholder name, so that you can reach out to the specific person or the stakeholder. The NFR question is technical. So in such cases, what you have to do is that you actually come up with the business impact, so that the business stakeholder can understand how this NFR is going to impact the business in the long run. All requirements are equal. As I said, that it's always good that you prioritize and give some weightage to the requirements, so that you can prioritize, or you can filter out what is not required or what is least required when you actually go into the implementation, or even during the requirement phase. You can prioritize what has to be taken into first phase and what has to be taken into second phase, something like that. So this is a tabular format that is depicting change in NFR ask in last decade, right? So if you look at the first column, it primarily talks around the key critical infrastructure non-functional requirement, and how these requirements were in a few years back, and where these requirements stand as of now. For example, availability. A decade ago, system with 99.9% were considered to be very high available. But today, business is looking for 4x9 or 5x9 solution, which means that on a year, you cannot have a downtime of more than 52 minutes. So you can compare how aggressive the ask has been changed over a decade now. On terms of the disaster recovery, DR sites used to happen very rare a decade ago. If in case they exist, now they are more into, let's say, active passive mode. But today, business understand the impact of not having any sort of DR in place. So if you go into the requirement phase, then you'll see that every business is now actually looking for DR to be in place, either in active mode or in the active passive mode. Recoverability, I think it again get categorized into two parts. One is the recovery time object, which is nothing but how quickly your system can be recovered once you invoke a disaster. And recovery point object is nothing but the amount of data the business can sustain, the amount of data loss the business can sustain. So a few years back, RTO of 4 hours and RPO of 24 hours is something which generally business looked for. But today, RTO and RPO, it's instant RTO and RPO that is the business is looking for. So they really don't want to lose any of the data. They really want to say that, okay, let's say if we invoke a DR, the DR should be get activated in no time post invocations, right? Backup and restoration. So earlier, taking 1 terabyte of data used to take 24 hours. Now the change is that it has to get done in few minutes or few hours. Retaining a data for longer period of time is always a challenge in past as well. So let's say if you have to retain data for more than 1 year, you really need to have a huge space to actually put that data in place. But this has been changed with the latest technology in place, where you can basically reduce the overall space requirement by at least 10 to 20 times. We'll talk about that in the later sessions, but this just given just how the things are getting changed over the last decade. In terms of the scalability, a traditional infrastructure generally takes 4 to 6 weeks, but now with the cloud in picture, virtualization in picture, everyone is looking for auto-scaling at the max. The scalability has to be done in few minutes time. Manageability, earlier we used to have storage admin, we used to have network admin, we used to have server admin, operating system admin. But I think with things getting consolidated and with a single console, you can manage your network, you can manage your storage, you can manage your servers. I think the overall operational cost has reduced drastically. Okay, so till now we've been talking about the non-functional requirement. We're giving the gist of how the non-functional requirement look like, what are the critical infrastructure and non-functional requirements are. Now we've been talking about the virtualization, how the virtualization technologies or the features that actually helps us in meeting those aggressive non-functional requirements. So in subsequent slide, I'll try to cover some key virtualization features that actually helps in meeting some of the critical infrastructure NFRs that have been changed over the period of time. So how the virtualization has moved or is moving ahead. So I have put some of the reports that have been published by key research and advisory firms around the growth of virtualizations. For example, a report from Gartner says that today's more than 90% of the enterprise have a virtualized program, the project running, whereas only 40% of servers workload are into virtual machines. The other Gartner report says that the x86 based server virtualization will double from 40% in 2011 to 80% in 2016. So that basically give us a clear view around the shift of the hardware architecture. So earlier we used to work on most of the work, the enterprise things generally used to work on the RISC-based system. For example, we used to have IBM AX, Centric, Sun Solaris, but now I think the shift is more into the virtualization, which gets supported over the x86 systems. Even the desktop virtualization is again is evolving one. It is expected that by 2015 or end of 2014, there will be around 50 million desktop virtual desktop in market. So 60% of the new servers workload is actually going to be in virtualized environment. So a report from Forrester says that by 2020 there will be almost $241 billion that will be spent on cloud computing. So that's the high level gist that give you a clear picture of where the virtualization is moving. In terms of how the consolidation has happened over the past few years, the working of your cloud from the virtualization is that what this particular slide is depicting about. So if you look at this slide, I think it says that at the earlier stage everything was physical, right? The phase one is where virtualization made its way into the mainstream data center with a strong cost reduction value proposition using server consolidations. So so with the help of server consolidation, that actually helps the overall capital cost reduction by 60% in some of the cases. So phase one is the phase or the era that was more around the server consolidation. Phase two is the journey of the business production phase, and at this phase the value proposition actually shifts from the consolidations to the virtualizations in order to achieve better quality of services in terms of performance, reliability, or the business continuity. So at this point, the organizations take cost saving from consolidations for granted and start focusing to move for faster provisioning, better capacity management, reliability, and the automation for the business application. The final phase is where we actually we are right now, or the industry right now, is the phase we call it as IT as a services or cloud computing. So customers in this phase have more than 50% of their data center virtualized, and it's now becoming a norm to it, right? So, and hence these companies have automated more processes, deployed new services faster than ever before, and are getting extremely high level of performance utilization. So this particular phase is more about the agility, scalability, and performance. Okay. Coming to the server virtualization, under server virtualization, I will try to cover virtualization features that primarily help in achieving non-functional requirements like availability, scalability, maintainability, fault tolerance, and sort of active DR. So before we actually deep dive into these virtualization features, I would just want to rephrase what the virtualization is and what are the key building blocks for the server virtualization. So virtualization is nothing but a proven technology that rapidly transforms the IT landscape and fundamentally change the way we actually compute, such as the operating system, server, network, storage. So in upcoming slide, for my reference, I will be talking around the VMware as a virtualization feature. This is one of the top virtualized products used across industry.